I have to admit, I went into this film with really, really low expectations. I honestly thought I was going to hate it. But I've got to tell you, it was awesome. It's actually a really, really good movie. It's so funny, so much funnier than I expected. And you might be pleased to know, or you might be disappointed to learn, that it's actually quite clean in terms of content. I'm talking about take your mother-in-law kind of clean. There isn't a whole lot that you could possibly be offensive to too many people. So let me go through the content in Bridget Jones' Baby. So violence, there isn't any. And the violent references in the film are mostly comical. So you see someone being bitten and someone being punched, it's for comic effect, it's supposed to be funny. You know, people fall over and that kind of stuff. It really isn't anything, you know, particularly aggressive or violent or upsetting in that way. I mean, I think the most upsetting thing that happens is there's a bit of an argument between two people. Well, there's a few arguments, but there's one where it just feels a bit sad that an argument's taking place. It really isn't anything I think, you know, is even really worth flagging. Although having said that, there is a lot of the film is set in a live news scenario, like studio news, and they're interviewing dictators or, you know, people from around the world who are involved in kind of controversial subjects. So things like genocide and assassination and military coups and things like that are actually mentioned. But as I said, these are just kind of, and they're in a comic context, so, you know, it's supposed to be funny. No real blood and gore in the film either. I mean, you do see a very long needle, which is an amniocentesis needle. You don't see it being injected or anything like that. You see someone who has a slightly bloodied nostril. You don't really see the blood, but then you see a little bit of tissue stuck up their nose just afterwards, so you know that, you know, it was bleeding. And you see a bite mark. And again, it's from a bit of a distance, really. It's slightly obscured on somebody's arm. A newborn baby, yeah, spoiler alert, Bridget Jones' Baby has a baby in it. You do see a newborn baby with that sort of matted, bloody hair as well, you know, obviously that most newborns have. So, but that's it. I mean, nothing too much to worry about there, I should think. Sex and nudity. Well, there are 2 sex scenes in the film, but you don't really see anything happen. You see the couple kind of kissing and flirting and going into bed and undressing, but you don't actually see anything after that. You just know that they've had sex. The film is about a love triangle between 3 people, if you don't already know, and so it revolves then around what happens, the relationships between these 3 people and the consequences. Nudity, you do actually see some women bare their breasts, and you see some shirtless men, you see people in swimwear, some people in exercise gear, but again, that's also fairly tame. The other thing is alcohol and drugs. There's a fair bit of alcohol in the film, particularly at the beginning of the film. There is one scene which is set at a festival, so you see a lot of drinking, kind of binge drinking, and drunken behaviour as a result of that. And through the film, you see, you know, champagne and spirits and beer and wine and all of that, mostly sitting on tables when people do drink, but it's not a really strong theme in the film. There's no illegal drugs in the film either. There is a mention of some drugs, but they're things like morphine and epidural, so they're drugs associated with labour and birth. There's certainly not, you know, any illegal drug references in the film. And finally, offensive language. So this is probably the strongest part thematically in the film in terms of content, and it's not even that bad. There's a few F words, a few S words, a couple of A words. I think bollocks is said once. I know bitch is used once, I think. I think there's an obscene finger gesture. There's a bit of name calling. But again, it's not really that bad. I mean, the only thing I would say is that there's a few sort of references to sort of sex through the film. So there's jokes about everything from prostitution to, you know, ejaculation and having sex and, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's the same kind of Bridget Jonesy style banter that you've already seen in the first 2 films. So there's that here as well. But again, you know, it's the sort of thing, like if my mother was sitting next to me, I wouldn't have felt, you know, uncomfortable or weird about it. Or maybe if my dad was sitting next to me, but then I'd wonder what he was doing in the first place, and that would be weird. But anyway, you get the picture. So overall, the content is pretty okay for Bridget Jones' Baby. Like I said, I'm not a massive fan of the films, and I really didn't think I was going to like it, but it was hilarious. In fact, the scene of when Bridget makes her way to the hospital to have the baby is one of the funniest things I've seen on screen all year. I mean, honestly, I'm so glad. It's sort of a long film, and, you know, but honestly, by the time you get to this point, don't have too many champagnes, because you will really need to go to the toilet quite badly from laughing so hard. If you're pregnant, oh my goodness, get to a hospital quickly. You know, it's that kind of like waters breaking sort of humour. Anyway, go and see it for yourself. Tell me what you think. Tell me what your favourite scene is. Mine obviously is that one. But I loved it, and I hope you do too. There's more a bit of information about the film on the website, which is cinemum.net.